It's a good overall balanced budget. I think with stress on infrastructure, particularly rural, also stress on roads and railways.
It is a pragmatic budget. We did not see so much of volatility, even if you would have seen in the market also. We were expecting that maybe there would be some tinkering on the long-term capital side. There would be some tinkering on the share, which may impact the share market and inflows, but everything remained intact.
The expectation was the finance minister kept repeatedly saying, I've got the fiscal deficit under control. We thought he'd bring it down to 3%. He says, I'm maintaining it at 3.2% in the coming year, which means this is a slightly relaxed fiscal stance.
He's given a big benefit to the middle class in terms of tax reduction. There has been, railways have been given a major thing in terms of safety and cleanliness. I think that is important. They've announced 20,000 megawatts of phase 2 solar program, which is very exciting. They've announced that there has been reconciliation. The GST Council, the income tax rules and the IT systems are going to commensurate or going to be aligned with the new GST rules. I think these are positives.
Certainly we can say that this is temporary. He very categorically said he expected all the disruption caused by demonetization to end in a few months.
Demonetization had short-term implications for industry. The worst is over now, and as the Honorable Finance Minister said, I think by March most of the effects will be complete.
Yes, demonetization has caused a certain disruption in supply chains, but every commodity and service has a different sort of supply chain. The disruption has been caused at the point where cash transactions form the bulk of that chain stage. One of the aspects of demonetization which was talked about was this will lead to a lot of harassment from the income tax department, and he's tried to allay those fears. I think that's a big statement from him. I thought the encouraging point about his budget speech was he said we will not be harassing honest taxpayers.
There are a lot of people who try to maintain their income only up to a level so that they don't need to file the return. So if the incomes are going, it is good to file your tax returns. The good part is he reduced the tax from with a bracket of 2.5 lakhs to 5 lakhs. He reduced the tax from 10% to 5%.
People in this country should become tax compliant. I think that is very important.
He did mention the number of bank accounts which had received more than 1 crore in cash of old notes. And though he didn't say it, he was implying that, look, a lot of these people don't file tax returns. So he is going to try very hard to expand the tax base. Let's hope he manages to do that, and so that the gap which he's postulated doesn't further widen.
When the overall planning is to reduce the tax rate, the purpose of reducing the tax rate is that we will reduce the tax rates and we will withdraw all the exemptions and reliefs. So therefore, when the intention is not to introduce any big relief or anything, I think you would have not expected other than reduction of rates by the big corporates.
The MAT credit being extended to 15 years, from 10 is a good move, and the individual reduction in tax in the 2.5 to 5 lakh category is also a good move. I would have expected that some other categories would have also had the benefit of reduced personal taxation to get more money in their hands for consumption to be improved.
There is no tinkering in that piece. It remained the same, so maybe they may be a little disappointed. They would have preferred to see some light, even 1%, 2%, but it did not really come out well.
He has tinkered with corporate tax at the lower levels, which again is a welcome thing, I think. He has extended the period for MAT, saying 7 years you can get a refund, which again is a small adjustment. He has increased the surcharge on people above 50 lakhs income, personal income. 50 lakh to 1 crore, increased that slab. So he's done some tinkering, but I think he's resting his claims of tax buoyancy on the fact that he hopes to expand the tax base.
He is trying to make the digital economy more successful, more transactions to be done digitally, which will make a more clean and transparent India.
It's a good indication for everyone to insist that you file your tax return if you have a permanent account number.
I think a lot of it depends on this budget, a lot of it is dependent on the amount of tax effort he puts in. I hope that works.
It's a beginning, and let's say if this trend continues and there's more compliance, I think we will see further reduction in tax rates going forward.
As I said, usually the traders and all, they all book expenses, salaries, support staff, and 20,000 is a limit and is not being questioned. It is reduced to 10,000 now. So the direction is very clear that whatever you need to do it, you need to do it through digital, you need to do through banking transaction, and you need to record everything so whatever is required. Political parties always remain in a dubious situation in terms of their collection. So acceptance by the government, yes, there is a play in this. Acceptance of the same and bringing very stringent norms. One is 10,000 to 2,000. That is one limit. Overall, the requirement was that you need to give a details who are giving 20,000 and above. Now that is, I think, reduced to 10. But overall, the donation limit in cash for political parties reduced to 2,000.
So with the pattern of expenditure he's projected, this should be stimulating consumer demand, directly and indirectly. And he stated in the beginning of his speech that he saw three challenges in the external environment. He saw global protectionism. He saw also the headwind caused by the Federal Reserve of America, which is ending quantitative easing and raising the dollar rate of interest. And he had a third area of uncertainty. He didn't know what was going to happen to the oil price, but he sort of suspected the oil price might go up. All of these would restrict growth in India. And he thought it was his duty to have a stimulating sort of budget.
From industry perspective, especially for MSME, which is appreciable, which was not expected that it would be reduced drastically from 30 to 25%. So if your turnover, if you fall under the category of MSME and then your total turnover is not exceeding 50 crore, I think the great part is that the taxes are slashed from 30 to 25%.
Industry will move whichever government and whichever state government in India gives major benefits. And we have to compete with likes of China, etc. So we have to actually keep improving.
Agricultural growth is projected at 4.1%, which is excellent, quite robust. He's trying to create jobs, particularly with focus on the footwear and the leather industry. Earlier to that, he mentioned that they're trying to create jobs in the textile sector, which is a large employer of people. I think the thrust on providing easier and cheaper rural credit is good. It will help our farmers.
I think I was expecting more for the industry, which especially for creating jobs in the manufacturing sector, which is not very clear from the budget. Now, it must be in the fine print. We've got to yet read the fine print and see what it is. People within the villages who are involved in a racket to create black money have had a major beating, and that money has come into the system. So everybody looks positive. Everybody is hopeful that this will bring long-term benefits to the Indian economy, and if the rural economy does pick up, then obviously the other sectors will also pick up. I think that may be the objective behind giving a major benefit to the rural sector.
But I think there's a question about the quantitative output on which people concentrate. There's also a question of the qualitative output. Will the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana build durable assets, or is the overall cost of building a road pegged too low? How long will these roads last? Will the states have the money to do the road maintenance? These are some of the questions we should be addressing, not just bothering about the outlay and the outcome is measured in a short term.
The developers have to pay the long-term capital gain of whatever income they generate out of that is only on the completion of the project. So there was a lot of litigation. So now that you take your completion certificate, only in that year, whatever is your tax liability, whether on account of long-term capital gain, interest, business, it would be computed only in that year. One is a 3 lakh limit, other is the expenditure of 20,000 reduced to 10,000. And no transaction would be allowed more than 3 lakhs in cash. That is the limit which they received as per some recommendation, which you talked about. I think that is well appreciated from that perspective, that let's have a not cashless, but a less cash economy. Plus, even from companies' perspective, people were booking all expenses in cash, driver salaries, servant salaries, all kinds of, you used to book the expenses, those limits are also reduced. So that would also encourage people to make payment by check, bring the money through banking channel, and once the money is being brought into the books, and into the accounts, it would be in circulation than running a parallel economy which is in black.
Look, this is a budget where he's specified 10 sectors and tried to do something for all the 10, which is a very wide-ranging kind of budget. I was very happy that in the budget speech, he raised things like infant mortality rates, and to try and improve our standing in some of the public health areas is a big step forward. I don't know whether he'll succeed in 1 year, but he's tried to make this a sort of national commitment, and that's a very welcome step.
The only negative impact has been in the 50 lakh to 1 crore category. Post more than 1 crore, there is a surcharge even today, and it's been maintained.
We will need to reduce corporate taxes. If you look at US or England, United Kingdom, they've all announced major reduction in corporate taxes. And if India has to attract investment, then we have no choice but to match those rates.
Big players did not get anything out of this, to be very frank. Only one benefit, some of the companies who have got their book profits, but in income tax, because of huge investment, they have huge losses. You were to pay MAT, and there was a period of carrying forward of your MAT payments, which can get a credit against once you will start paying taxes on income. That period was only 10 years, which has now been increased from 10 to 15 years.
The biggest disappointment was that corporate tax was not reduced for other categories of companies also, as was promised in his earlier speeches in earlier years.
I would say I was more worried that they may attack rich people, they may tinker with long-term capital gains, they may tinker with something which is going to really impact. So they have not touched upon those. Even I was expecting that maybe high-income group people may also be, taxed little differently, but there was nothing which was done on that front. But the message is clear that digital is the way forward. Declare your income. Cash expenses initially in the Income Tax Act for last 20 years were you can incur expenses up to the tune of 20,000. That limit is reduced to 10,000.
They are revoking very old laws which existed 150 years ago, 100 years ago. So step by step, things are happening. Rome was not built in a day, so it's going to take time. But if we all remain positive and bullish, I think next 3 to 5 years, this economy is really going to boom.